Welcome to the 1 to 1 Million podcast, your weekly crypto alpha for those who never quit. Today, we're going to be diving into the market and the current state of crypto and what's happening with altcoins, what's happening with macro, what's happening with liquidity. Are we going to see, some liquidity? Are we going to see some altcoin action? And overall, it's just my up-to-date thoughts on what's happening. I'm recording this the day before I'll be releasing it. I'm somebody who has my entire net worth in crypto. Literally every dime I have is invested in crypto. I pay tens of thousands of dollars for like all the best research in the space. I pay a ridiculous amount of money for research in the space. I read it all. And so you're getting kind of like all the data, all the insights from all this research taken into my head, distilled down through my own discernment and market experience, and then kind of just like, shut out my mouth as my own thoughts after I've kind of, processed it. I'm like an AI, right? That's the data I'm trained on. Plus my market experience, and then you're kind of hearing my output right now. So that's what we're going to be really diving into this week. But maybe to start, I want to just kind of look at the past couple years in crypto, because there's a lot of people are saying things that just aren't true, and I'm not even actually understanding what they're talking about. But I've seen a couple people. I recently did like a psychology. I swear I'm not going to bring it up this week. Every week I bring up that stupid chart. But I just posted one on Twitter, and I kind of like outlined where I thought alts were, where I thought Bitcoin was, and where I thought memes were. And I had somebody tell me, like you're dead wrong on alts. You're dead wrong. And it's like, okay, where would you put it on the chart? And they put it at like anger or something, like where it was like kind of still heading down, like it had just gone through a big drop and it was still heading down. And I've heard this a lot, that like over the past 2 years, alts have just been in the just sucking, losing tons of, like just crashing, losing a ton of money. And I think some of this comes from, which isn't true. I've been in alts for the last 2 years and I made so much money. I made more money in the last 2 years than I made during the 2017 or 2021 bull run. So alts have been doing fantastic. Like over the past couple of months, they haven't been doing good, but over the past couple of years, they've done insanely well. We've had multiple 20x, 10x, 15. I mean, they've been doing great. A lot of them, the majority of them, have not outperformed Bitcoin, which is typical of this leg of the cycle. But alts been doing amazing. And I think maybe the disconnect here is like the definition of an alt, and people have like a weird variety of definitions when it comes to alts and like what is an alt, what is not an alt. Some people include memes in alts, which is blasphemy. Okay, memes do not count as alts. So really quick, I'll define an alt for you. An alt used to mean just like everything besides Bitcoin. Now it does not. Memes are like their own category, very, very distinct things. Memes are very, very low effort tokens. I could spin up like 10 right now. I could literally pull up my screen and spin up 10 meme coins, as easy as making a post on Facebook. Okay, there are millions of these things because they're so easy to make. Anyone and their mom can make a meme coin. It is the most low effort thing. It's the lowest effort token you could possibly make. And so meme coins are their own category. You have millions of those, millions. Those are not alts. Those are not alts. Then you have like a lot of like dead tokens. Okay, like a lot of dead low effort tokens from past cycles. They'll sit on as like a number on the screen. Okay, so like when you look at total number of alts, like they're there, but they're like nobody's buying them, nobody's using them. These teams have moved on. There's also not really what most would consider alts. Alts have really come to mean some people call them utility tokens, or like real projects, like real teams building in the space. And the number of those, the number of real projects and real teams building in the space, that like they don't even have to be that good, but they're trying to do something, some sort of innovation. They're actually trying to build something. They put in like an actual amount of effort. The number of those teams is really small. And then of those teams, the ones that are actually talented and like really, really doing something in the space is like minuscule, absolutely minuscule. But let's go a little bit into the past and kind of look at what past cycles. So in 2013, there was around 66 different cryptocurrencies available to buy, but also almost nobody was paying attention to crypto back then. There was very, very few market participants. So there's a very low amount of liquidity to push these things up. And it was very difficult to buy crypto back in 2013. So, and people that were buying weren't buying in massive size. Okay, so 2017 comes along, the market scaled up a bit. It's a lot easier to buy crypto, but still very difficult. And there's just not a lot of opportunity to buy a lot of these projects. For example, I was around in 2017, and when I got on Coinbase, it was Bitcoin and ETH, and maybe Litecoin was there too. I can't remember, but I remember specifically when they added XRP, and I was like, this is crazy. They've added a fourth crypto token, or maybe XRP came later, but I remember them like they started out as three, and they were adding them one by one, and it was crazy because you're like, look at, I have so many options to buy on Coinbase. That's what it was like in 2017. Okay, and in 2017 there was 1,335 tokens listed. So that's like the number of tokens in existence was 1,335. But again, the number of market participants was a lot smaller than it is, than it is today. And then the amount of liquidity available to buy these tokens was a lot smaller than it is today. 2021 comes along, and now we have over 10,000 cryptos. Okay, so like we've like blown 10x the number of cryptos, but we've also 10x or even more the amount of liquidity in the space. It's way easier to buy stuff. Coinbase lists most of the things at this point, not most of them, but there's a lot more listings on Coinbase as far as things go. People are actually on chain doing things. So you can actually buy things through DEXs and all that kind of stuff. And even if those 10,000 cryptos back then, a huge portion of them are like the long tail of these tokens are always going to be low effort garbage. And that really just comes from the fact that it's very, very difficult to build a real business, a real team, and a real product. And it's really, really easy to build low effort garbage. So you're always going to get the majority of things being low effort garbage because by definition, they're low effort. And so it's easier for people to spin these things up. You had a lot of forks. If you remember, there's like 1 million ohm forks. There was like 1 million of forks of like tomb forks. And, there was a lot of meme coins. There was things like Safe Moon, all this kind of stuff. And even despite that, like the vast majority of alts still did really, really well because so many participants and so much liquidity came into the space. But the vast majority of those, like if you're actually to like distill those 10,000 down to projects that were like building, real teams that are building something. Like it doesn't have to work. I'm not even saying it has to work, but like they're actually building something. They're not like just some like guy who's like, I can spin this up and probably make a lot of money if I have a website and just like put a bunch of buzzwords in it. The ones that were like actually like maybe they're going to fail, but they believed in what they're building. The number of those was like super small. I would probably put it around maybe that 1,300 number, maybe more. Maybe it's doubled by then. But it's really small, really small. At least at like maybe the start of that cycle. Okay, but by the end, there was a lot of real projects building in the space because we garnered so much hype. But in the bear market, most of those died. Off. So, maybe like at the height of the market, we got it to like a couple thousand. Okay, but I would say probably right, at the start of that cycle and at the end of the cycle, you're probably looking at close to that 1,300 number as far as like real projects building. And you'll probably notice. I remember back in 2021, like I found this like DEX. It was like Burrito DEX or something. I forget what it's called. I just had my daughter randomly pick one, and I was like, I'm gonna throw money in this, see what happens. I was stupid back then. But my point is, it didn't run up. That didn't get much attention. Nobody was buying it. There was no volume on it. There was a lot of tokens like that in the 2021 cycle, and people are acting like that wasn't the case. Like all alts went up, but the majority of them didn't. A lot of those forks, a lot of those things just got no attention. And didn't go up. A lot like meme coins today, there's a lot of those things that didn't get attention. It was actually a small segment of the 2021 market that got attention, and it was the things that were actually, for the most cases, doing things that actually had some sort of exciting technology or some exciting team behind it. There were some things where it was just garnered, attention from influencers and things like that. But for the most part, the things that capital tended to flow toward were the things that were the most promising. That's how markets work. Capital, likes to go to where it's treated best, the things that make the most sense. And that's what it did in 2021. And it was better things than what we saw in 2017. Now we're sitting here in 2025, and people are throwing out numbers like there's millions of there's 11 million tokens, okay? 99.999999999% of those are meme coins. Okay, because they're so easy to spin up, and there's been a meme coin mania. So many of these things have been launched. It's absurd. If you were to get rid of all the meme coins, it's so small. It's like maybe there's like, I don't know, like 30,000 tokens, 20,000 tokens, so somewhere in there. Okay. Now, of those tokens, if you were to get rid of all the dead ones, it's probably way smaller. You're probably sitting at like the ones that low volume, nobody's doing anything with, the teams have left, that kind of stuff. Maybe you're down to 10,000, 15,000 somewhere. I don't know. And then out of those ones, if you were to get rid of the low effort ones, so I would throw things like, I don't mean to hate on AI agents, but AI agents are like meme coin adjacent, right? So like AI agents, lots of these maybe layer twos that really aren't going anywhere. They're just like there's some layer twos that are distinct in building stuff, but some of them kind of feel like forks. They're just like somebody spun up a layer two for something. Actually, no, you know what? We'll include that. We'll even include those. Okay. We're just going to go for like Larry in his garage, who's like some dev. He just spun up some random thing. Those kind of things, which are just nonsense going nowhere. Kind of like it's another DEX or like that burrito swap kind of one. If you were to eliminate those things and just focus on like real teams building in the space, you're gonna get down to, again, probably because of all the projects that got killed off in the bear market and that have just died off and the lack of capital in the space, it's probably pretty close to that. Like it's probably less than 2,000 projects today. There's probably less than 2,000 projects that are doing stuff like that in the space today. Maybe if it's more, it's maybe a little bit more. But there's not many. There's not a lot of them. And so people keep saying like there's not going to be no alt season because there's too many tokens. And they said that's just not how it works. During alt season, capital doesn't flow to every single token. It doesn't, and it's certainly not evenly. During an alt season, capital flows to where it's treated best. And it needs fundamentals to distinguish, like to know where to flow to. It's not going to like evenly go to all these millions of meme coins. There's no reason for it to go to meme coins. Meme coins are a bucket. People look at it as a bucket and they're like, hey, okay, here's 11 million meme coins. For the 1% of my portfolio, I want to stick into memes. Or maybe for some people it's 100% of portfolio. It depends on how degen you are. They're going to look at a couple memes to put their money in. Not all. They're not going to evenly distribute them among 11 million memes. Okay, and most of the times when it's memes, you're putting it in for like 6 hours, then you're getting, out of Dodge because that thing's going to collapse. We're all don't work like that. But my point is that the capital is going to look for like a reason to go to something, a reason to believe that this thing can go up. And you know what's a really great reason? Somebody building world-changing technology. A project that's making tens of millions of dollars, or maybe hundreds of millions, or maybe billions annually. Those kind of things are going to be above and beyond other low-effort projects, because a low-effort project, again, you could have millions of them. But a real project building, making $1 billion a year, that's really, really hard to do. And so it's the odds of that thing succeeding and not going to zero are a lot higher. And so I guess I don't really even remember how I got down this, and I've talked about this on so many different podcasts. Oh, alt season. Okay, alt season will happen. All season will absolutely happen. You know why it's going to happen? Because crypto is doing something amazing. It is disrupting the financial system. It's disrupting money itself. This is like the kind of disruption maybe you witness once in a century, maybe once in a millennium, like disrupting money. One of the most foundational technologies that literally everything, business, government, the whole world is built on. People seem to have forgotten this. They seem to have forgotten that crypto is a massively disruptive technology. Weirdly, at the exact same time that's seeing real adoption, at the exact same time that governments all around the world are recognizing its capabilities, Wall Street's recognizing its capabilities. Elon Musk is talking about putting the U.S. Budget, the U.S. Treasury on chain. You're seeing like these crazy movements where like the rest of the world, like the wealthy and these asset managers, they're starting to get it. Larry Fink's saying tokenization is the future and everything's going to be on chain. They're getting it, while retail is missing the picture. They're like forgetting that this is like a revolutionary, highly disruptive technology. A technology, by the way, that's growing at twice the speed of the internet. So the rate of adoption for crypto is twice the speed of the internet today. It's crazy. And so there's no stopping this train. Okay, all season is coming. Like we're building real innovation. It's just such a minuscule part of the space. And that's what permissionlessness means. Permissionlessness means like, anyone can launch a website. The vast majority of websites are not important. They're not like useful. And most people are not going to visit those websites. But you have, millions and millions of websites. That doesn't make, something like Amazon any less valuable as a website. And that doesn't mean that people are going to stop allocating capital, to software startups, to SaaS startups and internet businesses. It just means that capital is only going to go towards things that are actually valuable, and it's going to stop getting wasted on things that aren't as valuable. And the reason that we've kind of ended up in the place we're at, where like a lot of this capital is flowing to things that aren't valuable, like meme coins, etc., it really has to do with the fundamentals of like how the crypto space originally was and kind of what it became. Originally, it started like we had ICOs and stuff like that, where like any average Joe could get in on the ground floor of like Ethereum launching, or like, anything like this potentially world-changing technology. You get in day one, you can ride the whole thing up, make a ton of money with everyone else, and everyone loved it. Somewhere along the way in crypto, VCs came along. It has to do with regulation too. Like they couldn't do ICOs anymore. VCs came along, and you started getting these really predatory launches where like these things would launch at like $1 billion, $1 billion market cap with like 10 billion FDV, where, you have all these VCs like dumping on you day one. And basically the project launches and it's down only. And it took a couple launches for retail participants to understand this. And once they did, they just didn't want anything to do with alts. And so they completely abandoned it for a place that they could get what they used to get, which is that like day zero, right up from the bottom all the way to the top, which was memes. But originally when that happened with memes, when we first kind of went into this meme coin mania, we didn't have pump.fun. And you had to have some sort of smart contract experience to actually launch a meme coin. So there was some sort of barrier to entry. And that meant the attention, you didn't have as much dispersion, and attention focused on just a few. And those few could run for like months and months on end. They were hitting really high, like multi-billion-dollar market caps, and a lot of people were making a lot of money. Then you had things like Pump.Fun enter the ecosystem. Then anyone could launch a meme coin. The dispersion became really, really wide. People, really started running the loop over and over again, to where it went from months to weeks to days to hours, where people would buy and then sell, buy and then sell. And so the market cycles started happening a lot quicker with memes. And now meme coins have become like even more predatory, even more worse, where, like a lot of these things are launched by cabals or influencers, etc. We're seeing the exact same thing. You saw it with Hawk2, you saw it with Trump Coin, where they're launching, insiders hold 80% of the supply, and then they dump on retail. It's literally the same thing. Only now you're dealing with things that literally are valueless. There's like no way, at least with like some of these tokens that we're launching at $1 billion market cap, that were like real projects. At least like in the future, maybe you could recover that value because they are building. These are real teams building something, right? Maybe they eventually make their way back up to 10 billion and you do a 10x. Meme coins aren't like that. Like if they don't go up, then they have no use. They lose attention, they lose sentiment, and they just go down only. Okay. So it became this like even more predatory, even more gamed system. And so the pendulum was over here. It swung way too far over here, and now it needs to come back. And when it does come back, as regulation clears up, the hope is we find a way to launch these tokens at much, much lower valuations. But teams should be launching their tokens as close to zero as possible. In my opinion, as close to as zero as possible, because that's how you build a real like cult community, rabid follower, is help them, like let them ride up with you. VCs are just going to dump on you. Like that's what VCs do. They invest, and then as soon as it unlocks, they dump. They're not going to support you. And I'm pretty sure every project would love to trade one VC dumping on you for 1,000 rabid fans, like telling all their neighbors and their friends and posting on social media about your project. And the way you do that is you launch it, as close to a zero as possible. And I think we're going to get back there. Some of this is regulation, has been regulation in that we haven't been able to do this. But if we get clear guidelines from the SEC, which they're wanting to do, and we have everything in place to do this now. If we get clear guidelines from the SEC, we might be able to do this. We might be able to do like something akin to ICOs if we're registering and doing it right, which would be amazing. We might be able to launch tokens, security tokens we could trade on chain that actually give you ownership in these companies, like equity in the company. That would be amazing. We might be literally just like, 6 months or less from some of this stuff happening, which will totally change the game when it comes to crypto. And I think a lot of this attention is going to rotate right back to alts, but not just alts in general. This highly concentrated group of alts that are real teams building in the space. They're doing amazing things because there's actually a lot of liquid tokens right now that are fantastic. These things are revenue generating machines making a lot of money that have the potential that are just sitting on the market floor because nobody's buying them, nobody's touching alts, and they have so much potential moving forward, especially if we're hit an alt season. So alt season will come, and the capital will go where it's treated best. That's kind of my first thing. I didn't mean to rant that long on that, actually, but I hope it's something that's been frustrating me on X. I'm seeing so many of those posts, and I hope that gives you a little bit of indication the way my brain works. Now, the second thing is markets crawl up a wall of worry. That's where we've been the last 2 years. Markets crawl up a wall of worry. And what that means is when everyone's continually bearish, markets just kind of like crawl up. Okay, they generally kind of drift up. As people are continually bearish and worrisome, which is where crypto has been for the last since 2022. It has been pure bearish sentiment. We've had little bursts where people started to get a little bit bullish, but even then there was like half the space was still hyper bearish. So markets crawl up a wall worry has been the market environment for the last 2 years. And basically, if we don't get an alt season this first half of the year, which has been my expectation, and I think other people's expectation that would see this alt season first half of the year, if we don't see that, is my belief that we continue in the same mode of markets crawl up a wall of worry. There's been no unhealthy, frothy environment for all this leverage and garbage to build up to see a huge market collapse. So instead, we'll continue the markets crawl up a wall of worry into the later half of the year, and at which point that's when I would expect to see an alt season that would potentially rotate into the early 2026. So that's where we're at. And say we didn't even see that. Say we saw a 2026 cycle instead of 2025 bull runs, 2026. Then it's markets crawl a wall of worry all 2025. We do good. We make in general, some money. Nothing crazy, nothing like a bull run. And then 2026 a bull run or 2027. It doesn't matter. Eventually, altcoins rotate back in. People are building real technology that's changing the face of the planet right now. You're seeing the early use cases of that with stables, which if stables are insane. Like they came out of nowhere. They're absolutely changing the game when it comes to just like moving money around the planet. Tether, a small company with like 50 employees versus I think BlackRock has like 20,000. Tether has like 50 employees, and they are making more money than BlackRock is. The largest asset manager on the planet, BlackRock, with 20,000 employees, this like legacy company. Tether, this little like stablecoin startup with 50 people, is making more money than they are. They're generating more profits. Okay, so like you don't understand. Like we have so much. There's so much potential in the crypto space. There's so much value to be that we have the potential to tap into. We are just getting started. I've been saying it for a while that crypto is going to $100 trillion market cap. By the way, I had somebody in the comments call me out for that, and they're like, "You're stealing that from Raoul Paul." And I'm familiar with Raoul Paul. I've heard him say it too. And he also says a lot of my stuff about like crypto winter, crypto summer, crypto spring, all that kind of stuff. Just so you know, that is original idea. Both those things are original ideas from me. I'm sure they're also original ideas from him. It's not that revolutionary to come up with like, hey, crypto is going to be really big. It's going to $100 trillion market cap. It's a little bit marketing, I guess, in the sense that like I don't know exactly how big it is. That's a nice round number to point to, and for me to say, hey, crypto is going to be massive. It's going to be massive. It'd be weird for me to be like, it's going to a 77 trillion market cap. 100 trillion is just like a nice round number. Okay. And the point of it all is to say that crypto is getting a lot bigger than it is today. And I really do believe it's going to be over 100 trillion. Like crypto's a whole as a market, it's going over 100 trillion. Cause again, it's disrupting money, it's disrupting finance itself. And so our goal is to stay in the game as long as possible. That's why my podcast was originally called Never Die. Because that's your goal. Just don't die. Don't blow up. Stay in the game as long as possible. And that's how you win. You don't have to play it super risky. You don't have to do all that. Don't focus on the short term. Focus on the long term. And if you do that, you're going to make, it's my belief, that is the greatest wealth building opportunity of our lifetime. And that is how you're going to make more money than you can possibly imagine. My belief, my opinion. But my money's where my mouth is. My entire net worth's in crypto, okay? I'm not selling you anything here. Like my entire net worth is in crypto. So I also believe this. Crypto is going way, way higher. And it's just about staying in the game. Now, a lot of people are talking about liquidity right now. I'm literally doing a YouTube video where I'm going to like summarize all this and say it a lot better. But a lot of people are talking about liquidity. And right now, for some reason, the market is like turned into like QE. Like it's like half the market figured out that what QE is. And they think it's like necessary or something for an alt season. Like we can't have QE without an alt season, which isn't true. 2017, we didn't have QE. The Fed was raising rates in 2017. So no QE, Fed was raising rates, and we had a great alt season. Okay, we don't need QE for an alt season. QE is just a form of liquidity. It's a form of liquidity that only comes when the rates, when the Fed already have rates at zero. It's like a break glass in case of emergency kind of measure. AKA, it's not something you're going to see anytime soon. QE isn't like just around the corner. The only reason you would see it sooner than that would be if there was a trouble in the bond markets, where maybe the Fed wanted to prop up bonds for some reason. But outside of that, you're just not going to see it anytime soon. And honestly, there's like bigger, more important ways that liquidity could enter the system. Right now, the things that I'm watching are China. But China's not going to really do anything as the dollar is sitting strong. Okay, they want the dollar to be weaker, so we're waiting for the dollar to weaken. Some people are theorizing that Trump on purpose is making the dollar strong. It's a good bargaining position to get kind of like what he wants with all these countries, and then he makes all these deals, and then he weakens the dollar. Trump as a whole is very outspoken that he wants a weaker dollar for trade issues, for market issues, all kinds of things. Like Trump, very consistent track record of wanting a weaker dollar. And a weaker dollar means more liquidity coming into the markets. When a dollar is stronger, people had to pull liquidity from the market so they can pay off their dollar-denominated debts. When dollars are weaker, it's a lot easier to invest in a lot of these assets. So we want a weaker dollar. A weaker dollar also allows China to do stimulus for their economy, which direly needs it. And so then we have more liquidity entering the market. On top of that, another thing I'm looking at is lower bond yields. Okay, so right now yields are really, really high, which is kind of shocking. That's why your mortgage payment and all that kind of stuff is so jacked up. It's because yields are really high. We want to see those lower because the lower those yields are, the lower lending is, and the lower lending is, the more private credit you're going to see. So like the more money creation you're going to see, and that's another form of liquidity entering the market. And that's what we want to see. Okay, we want to see more of that liquidity enter the market as well. And that's been a mission of Scott Bessent, Trump, that they both talking about. They want to see lower yields. They want to see rate cuts. They want to see all this stuff that are going to make your backs go up. Okay, and they want to see a weaker dollar. So we're heading there. It's about when we get there, not if we get there. That is where Trump and Bessent want to take us, and they have incredible powers to make that happen. So we're heading there, and that's what we're watching for liquidity. We don't need to see QE to see a massive wave of liquidity enter the market. And I think we're entering the start of this kind of liquidity onflow that we're going to see into the markets. And the last thing I'm watching is of course, rate cuts. So we want to see more of those rate cuts. Fed's projecting 2. I've been saying we're going to see more than 2. We'll see at the end of the year if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to see more than 2 rate cuts this year. Trump wants them badly. I think inflation is actually far more under control than CPI data is showing. It's backward looking, and if you look at like current data, it looks like CPI. It looks like inflation is quelled pretty well. If you look at things like trueflation, different things like that. And I think with a lot of Trump's policies as well, that's going to just put a stamp on inflation, and that's not going to be as big of an issue. Now, on top of liquidity, we also need another thing for alts, and that's we need liquidity direction. Okay, it's been in my opinion that like liquidity isn't really the full issue. Like it helps, it fully helps. Like pour more liquidity in, it's like gasoline on the fire, right? Okay, but you don't need gasoline to start a fire. Yeah, you just need the right conditions, right? Gasoline helps, it's an accelerant, but if you got the right conditions, especially if you don't really need to start that big of a fire, because alts aren't that big of a space, it can happen. And really that's sentiment, and that's the direction of liquidity. Right now, the direction of liquidity is away from alts. People don't want to buy alts. They're focusing on other things, memes and Bitcoin specifically. And we need to see more of a focus on alts. And as more capital focuses on alts, it just doesn't take a lot to move the needle. So we need also a sentiment shift. And then you could also say you need a wider, you don't need this, but it would be very helpful to have a wider retail sentiment shift where retail is once again focusing on crypto. Any retail that has got onboarded into crypto over this bear market has jumped straight into memes, probably lost all their money and they're gone, okay? And so that hasn't been a great, memes are a horrible onboarding mechanism into the space. For most people. And so where alts are different, I call them a garden, right? Like in general, they go up slowly, and a lot more people make money. The 2 catalysts that I'm currently looking at are tax returns to kind of tax season rounding up, the liquidity that comes from tax returns, as well as FTX repayments, which is supposed to happen later this month. We'll see what happens if those make a dent, but maybe they're the spark and the catalyst that alts need. And the last thing I want to highlight is that markets bottom when sellers are exhausted. When FTX collapsed, and it was 2022, and I threw my entire net worth into crypto, it was because I looked around and I said, you know what? Who's left to sell? After the Luna collapse and then after the FTX collapse, who's left to sell that hasn't already sold? Because after the FTX collapse, if you hadn't sold, well, like what in the world is it going to take to make you sell? Okay. And, like that was like max pain. If you're not selling there, you're not selling. And so we didn't have like a ton of new participants come into the space or anything, but basically from that point forward, it was up only. Okay. And it's because we ran out of sellers. We ran out of people to sell. And that's kind of what we're looking for right now. Like when are sellers going to be exhausted? Like eventually we're going to run out of people to sell. And I feel like for the little mini cycle we've been in, like the down period for December and January into February, I think we're getting close, if not already there, if not already completely there. So that's my take. That's my current thoughts about the market. Again, patience is key. If we don't see an alt season early, first half of the year, we're going to see it maybe second half of the year or maybe next year. I don't know exactly when, but I know the gains are going to be so insane that I'm willing to wait it out because there really isn't that many projects to put capital into in the space that makes sense, that have some sort of fundamentals or reason to put capital there. And I know at some point markets will wisen up and they will put capital where it's treated best because that's how things go. That's where things eventually end up. And I'm willing to wait out the storm. I'm willing to wait it out and see how this all pans out because I'm a big believer in open finance and what crypto is building. And I'm not the only one. There's actually a lot of really smart people that believe, even especially in traditional finance, that believe crypto is the future. And I think we are so close, especially on the regulation front, to seeing a really big acceleration into the crypto space. As always, none of this is investment advice. None of this is me telling you to invest in crypto or anything like that. These are just my thoughts. I'm not your financial advisor. I am not your father. I am just a random guy on the internet who is sharing his insights and thoughts on what he's doing with his own money. And you are a grown adult and you got to be responsible for the decisions you make. So if you go invest your life savings into a meme coin and lose it all, guess what? That's your fault, Frank. And you're going to have to own that decision because guess what? No one's coming to save you or bail you out. That was your decision. So maybe don't do that. And maybe make sure you're doing your research and thinking through the things you're doing before you're doing them because, hey, I'm here for some information and my thoughts, but ultimately you're responsible for what happens to your own money. I will see you guys later and catch you next week.